kids have a separate game room. How do I get it? I gotta sell my house to get it. Well, no one's gonna take that offer, right, without them. There's no contingencies anymore, are there? No, not around here. So we have a company that will come in and buy your borrower's home and give them up to 80% of their equity in the house. So if it's $1 million home, they owe $500, the company will give them $800,000, pay off their $1 million loan, and now they have $300,000 to move to the new house and qualify without having to debt service them for the old loan. Does that make sense? Okay. So what happens is the way that that company knows what the property's value is, and Harvey's going to take the listing and sell these people their house. Harvey's going to give a broker opinion of price. Is that what it is? BPO? Yes. Yeah. And he's going to say this house that they're selling is worth $1 million, and he's going to send pictures in. So it's just like taking a listing or doing an appraisal for them. And that company will look at it and say, we agree with this. They will fund $800,000 to our buyers. They'll pay off their loan, and we get them into the new house. Once that loan is funded to get the new house, you have 90 days to list and prepare their property for sale. You are going to have a listing agreement with this company, so if you get this money for your buyers, they can't bail on you. You're going to be buying the house for these folks, and you're going to be selling the folks for these houses. Once that's sold, if it's sold at $1 million or more, you are going to find yourself getting paid whatever your commission is, and the borrower seller has to pay 2.4% of the selling price in order to get this money. So that's the catch. The catch is that they're going to pay $24,000, 2.4% of the $1 million, to get these funds. Now you're saying that sounds really expensive, but if I took you through the steps of what a bridge loan looks like, you would be in excess of probably $30,000. You'd have an interest rate of likely 10%. You'd have to get appraisals on both properties. This one would have a prepayment penalty on it. So this is much more clean for your borrowers, and they'll be done within 90 days. Pardon me? That's a great question. If the property doesn't sell, this company will actually buy the property. Okay. At the price that you said it was valued at. Yeah. Okay. So it's a great deal. It's not, you don't have to use it every day, but we just did one up in Danville a couple weeks ago. So if you have questions on that, let me know.
Is this a new program?
It's new to me. I discovered it in August. Obviously, this company who buys these is going to come in and out of the market. It's in a falling market. They're definitely going to be more 75%, not 80%. They're going to be a little less likely to take it. So watch out for your condos. That's what I'm concerned about. Since condos are sitting on the market a little bit longer, they may push back on those just a bit. But we never know until we try. Okay? So if you know someone's out there looking, and we know that they're going to list their house as soon as they find something, let's get them on the ball with this as well. It takes about 48 hours from the time you do the broker opinion letter and for this company to approve us and fund our loan. So let's make sure if there's inklings of that, we get them started. Okay? Any other questions? Yes?
So regarding if there is any capital gain, does
1031 apply?
I don't think this is gonna work on a 1031 because, with 1031, you would almost wanna do like reverse exchange. We can talk about that. It wasn't in the training on specifically on 1031. But we can talk about that, because I get different ideas for 1031, and I so don't know tax law that much, okay? So let's talk about that one. Okay, anything else on this? Okay, you know where to find me, and now I'm giving you the rest of the time. We got exciting stuff for the Melrose. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Claudia. Appreciate you coming in. Good morning, guys. All right, I need energy to do this.
Good morning, Melrose.
All right. Did all of you see an email this morning from your C.A.R. president? How many of you saw an email this morning that came up? You didn't open it. Are you guys aware that you get emails from the state, from your state president?
I didn't get it. What did it
I
say?
didn't get it either, Melrose.
I didn't get it,
I didn't get it.
Okay, came in at 8:11 this morning in my iPad here. It says, as your president, I have pledged to keep you as informed as possible on key litigation events as they occur. Yesterday, C.A.R. was named as a defendant in a second copycat class action antitrust lawsuit filed in California Federal Court, the Central District. The lawsuit, Friedland versus Redfin Corporation, et al., is against NAR, Redfin, and C.A.R., similar to the Forde suit filed last month. This new lawsuit alleges that the defendants conspired to engage in an anti-competitive conduct relating to NAR cooperative compensation rule. The plaintiff is an individual who sold her house in 2021 and was represented by a Redfin agent in that transaction.
That was her first mistake.
As I noted last month when I updated you about the first lawsuit that C.A.R. was named in, we believe these allegations are without merit for several reasons, and we are ready to present those arguments in court. C.A.R. has retained highly experienced antitrust defense counsel to work with our own legal team. And as a reminder, due to the current litigation against C.A.R. and various other ongoing antitrust cases, C.A.R. will not comment on aspects of this case. However, we will continue to do our best to keep you informed of significant developments to the extent appropriate. So when you see the emails that are coming in from C.A.R., please open them, please read them, please keep abreast, because this stuff is in the consumer eye. It's on public websites. Your clients who are the consumers will see it and will ask you questions about it. So you've got to be prepared to have some sort of an answer for them.
Could you send that out? Can you blast that email?
I will
Email
forward
us,
mine
please?
on to everyone, but it should have gone to every single
No.
agent.
Did not
Did you
it.
get it, Chuck?
No, did not get it.
How do you get it?
Sorry,
Well, you're top of the pile.
Yeah, you're probably,
or whatever.
special.
Your privilege, Melrose.
Okay, so moving right along.
I'll just finish it.
I am going to start with the forms update for you.
Do you have handouts on that?
No, it's too many.
No, it's cool. I just,
Yeah.
can't play, so.
No,
Sorry.
this is the list.
Oh, yay.
So I'm going to start with the residential purchase agreement, and Chuck, I may need you up here
Okay.
on the,
Are there major changes or minor ones?
I will just go through the minor changes, but this is the current version, and I'm going to talk about what the changes are, so you'll see, you can talk about the differences.
We're not selling real estate to insurance.
So, starting on page 2 of 17 of the, page 2 of 17 of your purchase agreement, they have now added in, where you see there was no L4. There was no. They've now added in the insurance contingency is on there. Sorry guys, you don't have a handout for this, because there's too many pages for me to print. But I'm gonna go through. If you have done a purchase agreement, I will do my best. Maybe I can translate some of these into PDFs and send them out so you have the red line version.
What is the item number and so forth?
L4.
And what is it?
The old L4 was different than the new L4.
So the new L4 is regarding insurance, and they've put in the default of 17 days after acceptance. You can change it. There's
Wait a
a
minute,
space
to get a hazard insurance quote?
to get an insurance on your home.
Very hard.
As a buyer's agent, I do that in the first 3 days.
Right, but it's now in the grid. It's now in the first 3 pages of the grid, page 2.
Oh, so it's next to all the loan and appraisal contingencies, insurance is added
It's
to that?
very close to the investigation of the property, informational access to the property, seller, review of seller documents.
Okay.
It's fit right
It's
into that
just
spot.
under contingencies.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Why
have
did they
from-
have to
you-
add
On
that in?
contingencies, you
Because
have
it's
L1
becoming
to
such a
L8,
big
now you have
format.
L1 to L9.
It's,
You just
people are
have another
getting
added.
knocked out of this.
But does,
Okay.
pull the room, does anybody ever do that for their clients? I do.
Do what?
Get an insurance quotation on a house
Yes,
I'm writing a
matter of
bond
fact,
on.
if you notice that we have that new form now that talks about that
Did it,
immediately.
but right now, the state of California's insurance commissioner has killed almost all the companies doing
Right, who are
insurance
insuring
in
that.
California.
Yeah.
And I just lost a deal because my buyer couldn't get insurance.
Right.
So, but what I'm saying is, why don't you get that up front?
This is why there's that new form.
But
There's a
17 days is too long.
No.
Well, you can change the
You
timeline.
can
It's
do
like
whatever you
becomes
want.
zero.
It's
You
just,
can change the timeline.
Like
And
any
it,
other
hold on,
contingency.
it just becomes education. That's why we have in this
Right.
discussion, so you would know, the ones who are not doing it up front would know this is something you need to start chatting with your buyers about right up front. Okay,
Absolutely.
I do it immediately for the buyer, when I have a buyer.
okay, so
I
a
think
separate,
we start
a
talking
separate
to them.
contingency has been added for the buyer to satisfy themselves regarding insurance availability and cost. Those affected paragraphs are included in 3L, 4, 8D,
They still do
and
it.
12D. So those are the 3 paragraphs where insurance, you see the word insurance popping up. Okay.
Melrose, can you repeat this number?
Item number would be 3L, 4, 8D, 12D. The next thing on the purchase agreement, on the retention of deposit, they've just referenced paragraph 6 on that. Some of these are minor. On loan contingency, they have added in the word insurance again, that's the 8D that I was saying. And then they have a full paragraph regarding insurance on there. So those are 3L, 4, 8D, and 12D on the purchase agreement.
And those are all pertaining to insurance?
So you'll be sending the red line out?
I'm gonna try my best to send that out so you guys can see it,
Okay.
okay? That's the 3L8. On buyer review of leased or lien items, they have referenced in their paragraph 3L8. A sale of buyer's property is referenced paragraph 3L9. It's been there, the 3L has been there because that's part of the grid. They've just added the line number on the grid to reference, cross-reference.
What about the buyer's property? What about it?
Sale of buyer's property? Is the
Oh, they're
par-
departing residence.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you meant property, personal property.
No. Yeah, sale of buyer's property, sorry. And that's on 8K, and they've just added the number 9, so you know it's cross-referenced in the grid on there. On paragraph 9C, they have added items excluded from the sale. Any other brackets or other mechanisms, any other brackets or other mechanisms, and any associated holes for any other item shall not be removed, and holes shall not be patched. So it's in the contract that if you remove painting and has a hole, the seller's not going to patch the hole. you have to then ask for something like that to be done. Okay?
I got a question on that. So if you're fixing a home up for sale, you can't fix old homes?
No,
Oh,
of
no,
course.
you can. Yeah.
No, we're saying that if you have a home and you're in the home right now and you're moving because you just sold it, right?
Okay.
And you have brackets there and you took them down and there's holes there, you don't have to patch them.
Okay.
It's nice of you to do it.
Yes.
Of course.
But the argument was because that happened so often that there was a dispute constantly.
There were a lot of
So now there's no
disputes
dispute.
going
The
back.
the question is, number one, if you're representing your buyer and you're doing the right thing and you see they're gonna take it down, you know they're gonna take it down, you ask them in the contract or in an addendum to please patch the holes up. Otherwise, they don't have to. So they can't come back and say, oh, we're gonna take this to arbitration or mediation. No, we're gonna eliminate that. That's the idea.
So are you seeing that most of the additions to this contract are because of exactly what you're talking about? Like, it's always become a
Oh,
dispute?
always, you know, with C.A.R., they're very good at one thing, litigation. And every time they see something that's going to be litigated, they're trying to eliminate that, so that you, the agent, you don't have to get into it. So how do we do this? Well, the only way to do it is to add things like this into the contract to say, okay, here's the contract, you've been told that this is how it is. Now, if you want it otherwise, tell me. And if that's how you want it, then I'll change the contract to make it say that they're saying they're gonna take down this television with the brackets and all. I want it to be patched. Or I want it to be painted. I mean, you see, a contract is simply something that both parties need to agree upon. And so whatever your client wants is what they're gonna ask for. Okay, yes. Go ahead, Jerry.
The good approach to that is, same thing it was with hanging,
Yes,
you take them down
correct,
and replace them before the buyer ever sees them.
correct, yeah, the lamps,
That's what should be done.
of course.
If you-
Exactly,
If you have something in the house that's not gonna stay, remove it
that's right.
before the buyer ever sees it, before it ever goes on the MLS.
So that's a recommendation you give your client
Absolutely.
prior to when you're walking through the house and you're talking about what stays and what doesn't stay.
So Chuck, my question is, once since this change has been done in the form, have they also written that when you remove those things and or when you take the brackets off and when you are asking them to repaint it, many of the times my buyers and even the sellers tells you that the paint is not going to look the same.
Correct,
It will be a problem.
correct.
And then people even those things are done, they still feel that it's not rightly done. So is that also like a disclaimer written that if it is patched, it might not look the same as,
Okay.
and which it will never do?
I'll stop you quickly because the answer to your question is very simple. If they're asking you to paint it, and you're going to come back with something in writing that say, if we paint this, it may not match. And if you accept that, then we'll go ahead and go forward with it. If not, we're not gonna do it.
No, I understand, but what I'm saying is in that
not in there,
area
no.
where it says check mark, where the buyer's agent checks mark usually that when the paintings will be taken down, please fill up with, all the, things should be removed.
It's not,
I
it's
mean,
saying that that's not
But
the case.
I believe it should have that one disclaimer
Okay,
because,
hold on, Shelley,
Okay.
it says, unless otherwise specified in paragraph 3P1, which is 3P1, which will be where you check off if the stove is going to be
Right.
there and all those little
right,
boxes,
repair,
right?
yeah.
Brackets attached to the walls, floors or ceilings or any such component, furniture or item will be removed and holes or other damage shall be repaired but not painted. So,
Okay, so
it's telling you it will not be painted. Now, if you ask for them to paint and stuff, it's on you.
Okay, so it's written that it's not be painted, okay.
Yeah, there's something in there that would change that.
Okay, because paint does another setup, open up the worms.
Yeah, that's why I would say, if that was a big
that-
argument, you know what I would tell them? I would tell them,
Because it opens up.
we'll credit you for the paint, let you do it. This way it takes it out of your hands, because
Yeah,
you don't want to
exactly.
get into an argument of petty stuff. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
All right. The other thing is we have a new form, which is the balcony form.
Oh,
You know,
hallelujah.
Oh my God.
that's a big deal for balconies. You know, the big lawsuit they had out there in Berkeley or wherever. And that triggered something. So the paragraph on the balconies are balconies and other elevated structures. Paragraph 11N. And I'm up here. Balconies, exterior stairways, and other elevated elements. For properties with any building containing 3 or more dwelling units with elevated balconies, stairways, or other elements, sellers shall, within the time specified in paragraph 3N1, deliver to the buyer the wooden balcony and stairs addendum. Okay, so that's a new form, the WBSA form.
Mainly for condos and townhouses.
You know what the trees looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are faux balconies. I actually had a buyer ask me when I was marketing the property, which recorded this morning, can we go out on those balconies? That's a hard no, because there's no really way to get out there unless you open a window and climb, right? That's not a door. What do I do with that? I think I should use that document, don't you?
Well, that and probably an addendum to that too.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I would definitely say you definitely disclose.
Why do they do this? They open up a can of worms and they don't, just drives me nuts.
So, you know, you can actually send an email, Kay, and say, please add in about 4 balconies and so forth in that addendum. So,
Can I take some pictures?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't hurt to send it. That's the only way they would know, the committee would know that could be an issue as well.
This is why the change.
There's Mediterranean architecture in Los Angeles County, I guarantee you. There's 27 attorneys down there, do they not look around
That's
when
not
they're
it.
writing this stuff up?
Okay,
I asked.
okay, wait a minute. There is a committee, there's a standard forms committee that deals with all of these. And when an agent has an issue, when a lawsuit comes out, when a dispute comes out, these things go and trickle into that committee to say, should we be looking at this? If it's becoming a bigger issue, we need to have some sort of a disclosure or an addendum to help our agents in the field combat some of these things. Now, if there's something you see that should be done or would assist or help in anything that's out there, send it into them. We don't have like a police group of people that goes out and look for certain things. They have to,
Apparently not.
they get their information, it's trickled in from
Come
us
on,
that's in the
Melrose, the
field.
people on that committee are realtors, and they're showing property, and they have had to have seen this kind of architecture.
But you
It's just basic.
don't understand when you have 200 items come in before you that you're sitting to dissect and say which one is relevant at this time and which one isn't.
Fair enough.
It's not that easy.
Fair enough.
I've sat on that committee for years and it's not that easy.
I'll take some pictures.
Buyer's investigation of the property, paragraph 12B2. They've added in some words here, which says, buyer investigation of any other matter affecting the property, other than those that are specified as separate contingencies. Buyer investigations does not include any other things, among other things, sorry, an assessment of. So those are the words that was plugged in there. Investigation does not include, among other things, as assessment of the availability and cost of general homeowners insurance, flood insurance, fire insurance, so forth. So again, the insurance is a big, big issue right now. And it tells you, of course, look at the buyer's investigation advisory form, which is the BIA form. That's also on there. Okay. The other part is the 14A, which is the time periods, seller delivery of documents. They've added in item 11O from the grid. Is also part of that. So if we look at 11O,
these contracts in our hands, and look at them while you're telling us what the changes are.
I'm sorry.
It would help, I think it'd be helpful if we postpone this until we have the actual contracts in our hand, so we can see what we're talking about.
Okay.
That
All right,
makes sense?
so then I would
Yeah,
just
I agree.
read, I would just read these things to you,
Yeah.
so that you can hear it,
Yeah.
and then you can go through it.
Right.
The designated, notice of buyer or seller to perform. Paragraph 14E is revised to be consistent with notice to buyer to perform, so that a notice may be partially effective even if given too early with some contingencies. Designated electronic delivery address, real estate broker section defaults to allowing us to email address in broker signature sections, but allows for an opt-out if checked in, which case delivery by electronic means not effective until in possession rather than when it's set. Okay. The residential listing agreement. You know what the residential listing agreement? What is that? The residential listing agreement, you know, it looks like this. This is what it's gonna look like.
It's gonna look like your purchase agreement.
So it's gonna look like the purchase agreement having the grid system, okay? So this still is being tweaked right now. I would not go through it with you, even if I could right now, but they're still tweaking it, because it went from one committee to the Legal Affairs Forum with all the attorneys. They actually had some suggestions to tweak this again, so it went back for tweaking.
While you're on that subject, this afternoon, the class will be the listing agreement. How to fill out a listing
Talk about
agreement.
the new listing agreement this afternoon.
This is not the new one, no.
Well, that's the
I
latest one.
understand.
This is the
I
latest
asked
one.
if you were gonna discuss it.
Yes.
What, the new one?
Yeah.
No, not the grid.
No, the grid is still under work, so there's no sense in confusing anybody. So we're still gonna continue with this, because if that grid gets done, possibly in June, right? That's a possibility.
It's scheduled for June. All these
So
forms
we'll
are
see.
scheduled to come out in June.
Between now and June, agents who are new especially need to know how to fill out a purchase agreement.
Isn't that the truth?
Listing agreement. So,
God almighty.
So on the current listing agreement, well, never mind. Paragraphs that require choices to be put in the grid, compensation choices on the listing agreement as well. Compensation choices for sellers broker offered to buyer broker, dual agency, and no buyer agent. Affected paragraphs will be 3C1 through 5 and 4A through C.
I can't imagine what
Okay.
that is.
No, I
Okay,
can't either. It's
buyer
clear as mud.
representation agreement. How many of you are using the BRBC? Buyer
Can you tell us what it
representation,
is?
buyer representation agreement and compensation agreement. Okay,
it's almost gonna be mandatory here pretty
I
quick.
don't think most agents have started using it yet.
No,
Okay,
they're going to be.
the
I know,
buyer,
but I don't think they
We got a
have.
couple
No.
brokers up in Danville that.
But she has to say
They are, yeah.
right? I bet you nobody.
there are a lot of other brokerages that are required, has made this mandatory.
Just,
However, right now, it's, on our office, it's not a mandatory policy.
Not yet.
However,
What do you mean, not yet?
Not yet.
however,
We haven't decided yet.
You're a
Depending on what
I
transpires.
think he's waiting on the outcome of what's happening on the state level. The legislative committee have voted to make it mandatory, but it has to go through some legal channels in order to do that. So once that comes out, I would suggest that don't wait for that. Start using the buyer representation agreement. Start using it, start covering yourself. It's just, it's going to save you in the long run. It's going to probably eliminate a lot of the
Some
double ending.
offices have already started making it mandatory.
Yes, that's what I said. I said there are some brokers that have already
Yeah.
made it mandatory that with every transaction they want to see this form. Because this form actually has helped in some lawsuits that have come out.
This-
For how many months?
Let me get in
will that
between here,
be?
because I'm gonna go
No
back,
more than 2 years, no more than 1 year in some cases.
I'm gonna go back to the purchase agreement. Again, it's so important that even in the new purchase agreement that they're talking about right now, on, actually on D, which talks about joint escrow instructions to escrow holders, they've added this, and it states very clearly that escrow holder shall provide to the buyer and to the seller, either jointly or separately, a closing statement or a written documentation showing the amount of compensation paid to, respectively, buyer's broker and the seller's broker.
We used to do that in the old days.
I don't care what you used to do, I'm just telling you what is
But
going
why
to be
did we
done.
stop?
I don't know.
So
I
the
don't have an answer to that, but I'm just telling you, it's getting to be so important that we're trying to collect or connect every little dot so that we don't get into a more deeper situation. Now, today, I read an article this morning talking about all this and talking about what the government is doing, what their lawsuit with us as well. And so it seems like we're headed in the right direction, especially with using the buyer broker compensation.
I never understood why we changed it, because I remember.
Well,
when-
that's not gonna make any difference at this particular point. What's more important is how we're gonna get paid. That's the most important thing. It's just another avenue to say, don't come after us because you didn't know. You do know. And it's just another loophole that they should have never thought about. Because we've been doing, think about this, almost 100 years we've been doing business the same way. Compensation's always been the same way for almost 100 years.
Always negotiable.
Yeah, never changed.
Well, there has been collusion, as we know.
And now all of a sudden, you know.
Well, they're getting called
And you
out.
gotta look at the fact, you know, the government is saying, well, the seller has to do, the seller has to do that. Well, how about the buyer? The buyer, already the buyer has a lot of cost as well. You know, when they get a loan, they have all these extra loan fees, they have to come up with the money, and now you want them to pay more? That's another issue. So this is why this solves a lot of it, 99.9–10%.
Okay, so with the buyer broker agreement, there's a new form called the Broker Compensation Advisory Form. Buyer and seller, there's a place for buyer and seller both can sign it. So you can give them this explaining what the buyer compensation is all, what the broker compensation is all about. So there's an advisory for that.
Now, do you
Yeah.
use that if you're using a buyer-broker agreement or no matter what? Is
I
that-
would say no matter what.
Okay.
That's me personally, but you
Okay,
know.
so you're gonna reissue the buyer package thing and the listing
A lot of
package
these
thing,
are
right?
bundled together.
Okay,
So,
cool.
so, yeah, some of them are, bless you.
Sorry, I didn't get that one.
Use
The
it
buyer
anyway.
compensation
no matter what.
advisory. Well, it says broker compensation advisory.
Okay.
And both, it has seller and buyer could sign it, either or. So if you're dealing with the buyer signs it. If you're dealing with the seller signs it. The other one that's coming out is called the Buyer Identification of Preferences and Priorities Form. So this talks about what the buyer is looking for. So this form, again, scheduled to come out in June, which I think they should release this earlier. It talks about when you're dealing with the buyer, just like what the price range is, what the property they're looking for, whether it's primary residence, second home, whatever. So you have little boxes you could check off. So it's like a little checklist when you're talking to your buyer as to what they're looking for. They do have to sign off on it though. Because I guess, again, there was a dispute, this is not what I was looking for, the agent forced me, I was talked into buying this, all this. I mean, we hear it all on the state level. So they come back and want to sue somebody, right? So
What's
there's a
that called?
form,
What's it called?
buyer identification of preferences and priorities.
But they keep changing their mind.
I created a document
Yeah.
20 years ago, and it's called a home wish list. I got the idea from Fidelity National Title, and I give it to every buyer I work with from the very beginning.
Yes, I do too.
And if there's 2 buyers, I give them each one.
Yes.
And then I give them back to me, and at the end, I give them back to them to say, see, this is what you said you wanted, and then if I find that what they're wanting and they don't write, say, see, this is what you wanted, do we want to adjust this?
Buy something different anyway.
Normally they don't. But anyway, so I think that's kind of,
Okay, but it's there for us to use.
you know,
The other new form coming with the bundle for all on the buyer side is a buyer financial and personal information form. So this form is coming out. It's called again, the Buyer Financial and Personal Information Form, where you can give your property financing, what your deposit is, what your down payment is, where is the source of the down payment coming from, whether it's savings, retirement, gift, loan, assistance program. I mean, there's check boxes for you to check out everything, your maximum loan amount, the lender information, financing type, other financial information, whether it's a 1031 exchange, whether it's expected legal settlement, whether it's expected inheritance, and then your personal information, your current housing, whether you're renting, all that good stuff. So that's also on that form. Next form.
Is that required or
Plus, they got all these-
suggested? Okay.
Arizona, these are all,
Arizona requires that.
oh, the state of Arizona requires this form, something similar to that?
Yeah, the lender fills out in the state of
Okay, well,
Arizona.
let's not do what the state of Arizona does, shall we?
And this is not from that, this is probably something that
Oh
they
my
got
God.
requests from over and over. The other one is seller payment to buyer's broker. So there is a form for the seller payment to buyer's broker, and it's been tweaked to come out again in June. So it has red lines on this one, so this is telling me this form may exist already in the system. And they tweaked it to add in, seller acknowledges and agrees that buyer's broker is a third-party beneficiary to this agreement. Buyer authorizes buyer broker and, if applicable, escrow holder upon request to deliver to seller a copy of the portion of the written agreement between the buyer and buyer's broker identifying the amount of compensation buyer has agreed to pay buyer's broker. So that's part of this form coming out. Okay.
I'm not sure did we need that form?
This one here?
Yeah, the one she just talked about.
It has already entered into a buyer representation agreement. You already entered into that agreement?
So they're asking, what is the agreement? Why don't you just
So
ask for the
they're
agreement?
just telling you about buyer's representation agreement and the compensation agreed upon again? That's all. When you did the buyer broker agreement, this is just a confirmation basically of what that is about, that they're confirming to that, the seller is, of this payment to the buyer, period. It's a confirmation
They're
of.
assuming they don't read and understand the buyer's broker.
Yeah.
Is that it? I
You know,
wanna just,
I think Jerry and I both can say one thing.
what?
When we started, him 60 years ago, me 47 years ago, we only took one piece of paper to sell a house, nothing else, right? The reason we have this is because attorneys don't make much money. So the attorneys have created this, and because of all these lawsuits, this is why we have what we have today. And it's gonna continue, so we have to get used to it. So we gotta do everything we can to protect ourselves, our clients, period. Not that we want to, trust me, none of us do. So they come, that's one thing good about C.A.R. is that, like Melrose said, you know, it's you people that have to tell them what you need. And then they look at it at the committee, because Melrose spent a lot of time doing that. Now, anybody else who would like to join, they're always welcome.
But
Committees,
Chuck,
it's a lot of work.
the buyer-broker agreement,
Yes.
why not just have the seller
Well, don't ask me why, I don't know.
acknowledge that instead of creating another form? It doesn't make
It's
sense.
double protection, it's like Bill Harcourt does.
Because that is really relevant to the
This
the
lawsuit.
broker and the buyer, and the buyer who's representing that particular broker. Remember, when you write an offer, you may not even get it accepted.
Yes,
So why have a seller acknowledge my broker representation form that I'm not even going to do business with?
no, but if you get into contract, wouldn't that be part of your presentation to the listing agent? No? I've never seen one in a transaction, is me the listing agent, so this is why I asked.
Yes. So both parties are acknowledging this anyway, on the payment of the buyer broker agreement.
What do you mean on the payment of buyer broker? Is it a buyer credit?
Seller payment to buyer broker, that's the name of the
That form
form.
is already there.
Seller payment, this is a buyer's payment.
Okay, on that form, it basically says the paragraph 4 is modified to allow the buyer's broker, not just escrow, to reveal compensation to the seller. So this is where you review the compensation to the seller. Paragraph 3, modified to make buyer broker a third-party beneficiary of the seller agreement to pay the broker. On the purchase agreement, I think it's referenced on the purchase agreement, when you go to line 3G3. Yeah, no, just double check it. On 3G3.
Sends a paper too.
Yeah, see, it's already referenced SE. Yeah, so it's already, on your current purchase agreement, it's already, this form is already referenced in there. So they just tweaked the paragraph 3. If you're gonna check the box 3G3, saying I'm gonna ask the seller to pay my compensation, right, then you use this form.
And do you submit the buyer broker agreement too?
No, you submit this form.
But why not submit the buyer broker agreement?
Well, then send that into the M&S, that
Really?
question to the
I
attorney.
mean, it
Yeah.
just seems logical to me.
Write your notes down, set them down.
Yeah. Okay, so just some revisions to some forms, which is the